Welcome to Your Next Level Now with your host, Bob Donnell. As a human behaviorist, Bob has helped people from every walk of life reach their next level, both personally and professionally. Whether a celebrity, professional athlete, or entrepreneur, Bob has helped them align their behavior with their desired result in their life and career. This is Your Next Level Now with Bob Donnell.
All right, everyone. Welcome. Next Level by Association Virtual. Next Level, Your Next Level Now. Guys, today we have a good friend of mine, somebody who I have an utmost respect for. You guys got to hear from Troy Hoffman on Thursday night. Troy is the one that introduced me to Scott DeLong. And Scott, when we first met, I was just like, didn't know what to expect, didn't know, Troy didn't give either one of us a whole lot of insight, I don't think, when we first had that first coffee meeting. And yet at the same time, I think I've just really come to appreciate and respect you even more over the years. And, now it is Dr. Scott DeLong. As when we met, it wasn't. And so one of the coolest things I've seen is the evolution of who Scott is. And I've got an opportunity to get to know some of his family members and just really witness life from a different perspective than maybe somebody who just was in one of your classes or has gone to one of your seminars or some of these retreats that you're holding. I mean, these are really some cool adventures that you're doing. So Scott, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Bob. I appreciate that. Yeah. I really, I was watching the episode with Troy the other day, and Troy is a good friend and knows a lot of people, and one of those people that he knew was you. And I was looking for a bunch of speakers actually for this event that I was putting on, and he recommended you. And as soon as I sat down, right, I didn't know what to expect other than see he's great. As soon as I sat down, it was just immediate connection for me.
Yeah, so likewise. Scott, you've the undoubtedly thing that really stands out to me is not only have you built successful businesses, but you've also been a speaker. You speak, you're holding these retreats. You have an amazing family. Your daughter is one of my all-time favorite people. I absolutely love her, Shauna. And, where does that come from? I mean, did you have a great role model growing up as a parent? Did you have a great role model as a business owner? Where did you get that from?
So a lot of thank you. I appreciate that. And you're right. When you talk about Shauna, you say she's a wonderful person. I say she's the best person I know.
I remember you telling me that the first time you talked about her to me. Yeah. And I remember that really stood out. Why do you say that?
Started when she was a little kid. Her mother and I got divorced when she was very young. So I got to spend a lot of time with just her and not in the family unit. And at 3 years old, she was in the back seat. We're driving in the car and I'm talking about her. And she's like worried about the world. Like, oh, this person's this and mom is that and you're this and all these concerns that this 3-year-old had. And I said, Shauna, you need to stop worrying about people so much and do what makes you happy. And she said, Dad, worrying about these people is what makes me happy. And she hasn't changed. Like, she's grown and matured and done all that. She's a wonderful mother now. But that's just her. She wants to take care of the world.
Wow. Where do you think that came from?
Had to be her mother. I don't know. It certainly wasn't me back in those days. And she's 38 years old now. Wow. So she's just got a genuine heart. And sure, we tried to do all the right things raising her and all of that, but parents messed up as well. A divorce when you're 3 years old, that's a mess up. That's not a great thing for a child, but she just cared. Now, I know my sister is one of her role models as well. And my sister's got that caring kind of heart as well. So that's where that came from. Okay. So you asked where role models for me.
Yeah. Role models for you.
When I was young, they were all coaches. It was all hard nose, to the point, no bull kind of coaches.
Right.
And I actually thrived on that. I loved the person that would challenge me and not just coddle me and, tell me I couldn't do something so I could show them how I could and all that. So I love that approach. And then that transitioned from coaches to a couple business leaders who were exactly the same way. They were the old command and control business style folks. And actually, when I was young, I was actually kind of embarrassed about my father. My father was never a high achiever, but he was a good person. Right? He's the kind of guy that would reach out and just talk to strangers. And when I was a kid, that embarrassed me. Like, you don't know these people. What are you doing? Right. So when you talk about mentors, he has become, and he's passed now 20 something years ago, but he's now one of my mentors. Just the memory of the way he treated people. Right. So I had to take a transitional period from where I was this command and control style guy myself. And at about 50, it hit me that that's not who I wanted to be when I grew up. I wanted to be somebody more like my father, more willing to just be with people, and not driving people and getting people to, to do better and be more and all that, which is, and I actually, as a parent, I did some of that to my own boys where, a couple of them worked for me and, they would accomplish something and I say, that's great. Right now, let's go do. And I'd start with the next thing that I want, the next level, because I wanted them to level up and continue to grow.
Yeah.
And if you think about it from my boys' point of view, and they would say, and they were right, that you can never please this guy. Right. So what I learned to do, and it wasn't until I hit this 50 years old piece, right, when I hit that I learned to say, that's great, put a period on it, and then shut up. Now, the next day, we're going to come up with some new, goals and things that they can work on, but just revel in their accomplishment and let them be proud of themselves. I didn't do that when they were really young, and I wish I would have. Right? I was always
How hard was that?
Right?
How hard was that to change that behavior? Because that was a pattern for you, right?
Yeah.
So, but you broke that pattern.
Breaking that pattern, not broke.
Breaking.
The problem with transformation is more of an evolution than a revolution.
Amen.
Right?
Amen. Thank you.
And I just turned 63, so it's been 13 years that I've been working on this, and I'm much further along than I was. However, I'm human and I still have those cases where I take a step backwards, go back to old patterns of behavior. And unfortunately, it's with the people that are closest to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I can get away with it, I guess. I don't know. Right. But they won't be close to me too much longer if I keep doing those kind of things. That's right.
Ooh, what a great statement. They won't be that much. Wow.
Yeah.
So when the cost of doing it became apparent to you, that precipitated you being able to make that change, or it being able to start making that change?
Yeah, it really was. It was a self-reflective analysis and the cost of things, and it really happened. One of the I'll tell you, one of the events that led to it was the realization anyway, was that I started playing tennis at about 45 years old. And I wasn't a tennis player growing up, but I got pretty good pretty fast. In the next 3 or 4 years, I got to a level that I was playing really well. And I was getting phone calls every day. Hey, can you come and play some doubles? Can you do this? Can you do that? And I thought I had created this new tribe of friends around the tennis game. And it was great. I loved it. My life was going great. Well, I injured my knee twice within a few months. 2 surgeries within a few months of each other, and I couldn't play anymore. And the phone stopped ringing. No one was calling me. So what I realized was that the thing that I took from that is that these people were wanting to be around me for what I could do for them, not because of who I was. So that was a major hit, was recognizing that as long as I can continue to produce whether it's in business or tennis or whatever thing else, phone's going to ring. Cool. When I stop producing for people, why would they want to be around me?
Hmm.
And that's what it looked like to me. So that's where got hit in the head with the 2x4, basically.
Yeah.
And it took that much for me to recognize that, this is not who you want to be.
Hmm.
Now, I don't mind what other people call success, getting things done, and that's great, but I don't want to be just defined as that. I want to be defined based on humanity, like areas around my humanity.
Hmm. What is success to you today at 63?
Oh, completely different than it was. I mean, I thought my definition of success years ago was to exceed my parents' expectations. I thought that's a great level, right? Well, the problem was I misappropriated their expectations. I thought it meant financial. I thought it meant buying bigger houses and having more cars and all of that. That they didn't care about that.
Hmm.
I mean, yeah, it's cool, but it what they cared about is raising a good human being, right? Like if I could exceed my parents' expectations on being a good human, that's success.
Hmm.
So I'm still going with the parents' expectations thing, but I just changed to recognize what it really is, and that's what it is for most parents. Like parents want to raise good kids.
Yeah.
They want to raise good humans.
Yeah.
Right.
Truth.
And when I realized that is when I changed the definition of success. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm still going to do things to try to gain financially and business wise and all. I still enjoy that portion, but that's not nearly as important as relationships.
Hmm.
So
what I love and what I'm hearing about that, Scott, is, and I find that true as well, is the expectations that we think somebody has on us may be completely different than what it was.
Yeah, they usually
one
are.
And two, that we can still pursue wealth and all these other things without that being the focus. The focus may be just becoming a better human being, and in the process still pursue that. But if we only pursue wealth, we may sacrifice becoming a better human being.
Well, and even more than that, I think that being a better human being actually helps perpetuate the wealth gain as well.
Yeah.
Because now people are going to want to try to help me.
That's right.
Too, instead of what's in it for them, right? Yeah. Being a better human, people are going to want to be around.
Absolutely. Scott, we had some really serious talks over the years.
Yeah.
I mean, sit down, want to cry type of emotional things because of things that you and I have both experienced.
Yeah.
And things that we have continued to experience over the years. Family is so important to you, and it's evident. When you sat down to say, okay, I'm going to start this business, and I've got this, Wave Tech, and I've got these other ventures that I'm doing. What was the purpose of those businesses when you first started the business?
The purpose was really to support the family, meaning buy them cool stuff. We had
buy them cool stuff.
We had 5 kids, and then it turned out to be 6 kids, and they had to have it was a blended family. My wife and I, we had 3 kids that are the same age. They're all 38 now, and 2 other kids that were the same age. They're 36 now. So within a 2-year period, I had to buy 5 cars for kids. And then weddings and colleges, and right. So build businesses to support the lifestyle for the family.
Absolutely.
And myself too, right? Because I used to think of trophies. Being a ball player growing up, we'd always get a trophy for something, and the trophy as an adult became cash, and things you could buy and all of that. So that was the purpose, building wealth. And there was some humanity back in me then. Providing good jobs for people was important too. So that was still important. And when I say a good job, that's one that people on Sunday night, they look forward to Monday morning.
Yeah.
And on Friday afternoon, they start looking forward to the weekend. So that if you can find a job where that, like where people are feeling like that, Can't wait to get back in there Monday. That's where my tribe is.
Wow.
That was a great week. Let's go have some fun with the family on the weekend, right? You can get that feeling. So that was part of it as well. But frankly, my needs were more important than theirs at the time. I still wanted to make money. So that was the motivator back then.
Who did you have to become in order for that switch to flip?
Well, there's three, and I'll tell you how I think it's flipped as well in the interaction of three different things that have happened. But there are three words that came out of these groups that taught me some things: empathy, humility, and vulnerability. I got pretty good at the vulnerability thing pretty soon, which was interesting because I didn't grow up in an atmosphere where that was possible. As I was growing up, if you're vulnerable, people would step on your neck so they can get 6 inches taller, right? that was my experience. And the whole empathy, we grew up with the, hey, pull yourself up by the bootstraps, quit whining and get to it.
Yeah.
And the humility, I still haven't figured out yet. I'm working on that part. That is still, and this is why I hang out with Troy, actually. Troy is my humility mentor.
Yeah, he is a great humility mentor.
It's like, how do you do that? And I'm better than I was, but I'm not good at it, at the humility portion yet. Because when you try too hard, it comes off as fake. And I don't want to be seen as empathetic or vulnerable or humble. I want to be those things, not be seen as, right? And so there's a difference between that. We can fake it for a little while. Right. We can get people to believe things just by acting out. I don't want to act, I want to be. And so this is why this transformation is taking so long, this 13 years, because it's deep, it's real. It's not just, I can pretend and I can make you think I am, because I used to be able to do that. Right. And now but that didn't serve me. So now I want to be that, because that will serve me.
You know, Scott, I mean, I'm loving this because I knew you before your degree, before your doctorate, before all of that stuff, and in the transition of some of the things you were going through at the time. One thing I will never, ever, I will always say is that you never gave a false pretense. You were just who you were, and you just said it the way you felt it, and you didn't. And I really appreciated that. And to see this other side of you, and this, I've never said this to you, but all of a sudden I'm just seeing the last 5 years, 7, 8 years that we've known each other. Well, 8 years at least. To see you just have so much depth now that, and not to say that you didn't have depth then, but you've just really deepened your not your talk, but really deepened your walk. And I just really, I'm really appreciative of that.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. You remember, so after we met and then you did your first talk, we sat down and we talked a little bit, and I actually signed up for your coaching sessions. You remember? Do you remember what I asked you to do?
Yes, to make you smile more when you're giving your talks.
Teach me to smile. Like because I needed that act. That was back in the time where I could, if I act like it, I could fake it. So I've got this persona, right? So I have a presence and I fill a room and all that kind of stuff. But man, I'm unapproachable. I'm unapproachable because that guy's scary, right? I had that about me, and I'm not scary. I'm like a teddy bear when you get past that first or second or third layer. Right. I take a few layers to get to the teddy bear, but there was a heart, even back then in those days, there was a heart there, but people couldn't see it. This came about. I was doing a retreat with a group, and it was actually the first one I ever did. And a friend of mine hired me to work with his team, and I did that. And I said, "Hey, I need some critique at the end of this thing. Tell me what worked, what didn't work, what was." And he said, "No, everything's great." No, that's not what I'm looking for. I don't want to hear everything's great. I said, I really need you to tell me what we could have done better. And he goes, it was perfect. Now, you know what? There's one thing. He goes, you could have more fun. And I looked at him and I said, are you kidding me? I had a great time. And he says, well, tell your face. Because I was just intense. Like, we're going to get through this. We're going to do, we're going to learn. We're going to grow. We're going to push you to the same way I was coached when I was a ball player. And so that's when I came to you and said, hey, teach me to smile.
Right.
Let's take away one of those layers, the angry looking mean guy up there with all the answers. Just smile a little bit, invite people in.
Isn't that great though, that even your friend, even though he noticed something at first, tell me what you thought. And he thought, it was great. But when you pushed him a little bit more and said, hey, that's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for this, the truth. What's really something. And then he gave you the truth. Wouldn't it be great if people felt like they could always just tell us what was their perspective at that moment without us having to go back and ask 2-3 times?
Yeah. Well, so I got a philosophy on that as well. Like I have philosophies on most things in the world, or at least most things that I care about. And
there you go.
And telling me that I'm great doesn't help me. I already thought I was. That whole anti-humble thing. Right. I already thought I could do stuff. I already knew how to do stuff, right? Telling me I'm great doesn't help me at all. So here's how I look at the word. Well, people use the word criticism, telling you're criticizing somebody. I do a couple things and reframe that. And the first thing that I do is I reframe it to critique. The word critique instead of criticism. The second thing that I do is I really try to do this. Now, my face doesn't always agree, but my heart does. When you are critiquing me, you are trying to help me. It is your attempt to help me by critiquing me. You wouldn't do it unless you cared or hated me, one or the other, right? If you hated me, you might throw some darts and all that. But if my friends are giving me critique, it's because they're trying to help me. They may not always be right, but where there's smoke, there's fire, right? You got to take a look at some of these critiques. So I actually invite the critiques. I welcome them. I can't get better if I don't know what I'm doing wrong.
Isn't that the truth?
Right? I'll just keep doing what I'm doing, thinking, like he said, if it's great, everything's great. I'll keep doing that. And I'll just keep being this intense facilitator that's got this furrowed brow and all that. And people are going to be afraid to talk. So that's why I have to go learn how to smile.
One of the things I love most about you, Scott, is you're relentless about wanting to improve, relentless about wanting to be better. Even when you're doing great, you want to be even greater and do even greater and be greater for other people. In the last year, or in the last, say, 3 years since COVID and all that stuff, what has been the thing, your number one learning in this last period of time?
It's more, the number one learning has really been a process on how to learn for me.
Explain, unpack, please.
So the process for how to learn wraps all around self-reflection, taking a deep, honest look at what is real. Now, my version of what's real and yours might be different. So there was a group that I was in that used a line that at the time it helped. It was very helpful. And it's, what others think of you is none of your business. Okay, I get that. That is a very self-protective, but I don't agree with it. I think it's exactly my business. I need to care what perception others have. Communication is not what I say, it's but what you hear and interpret. My personality is not what I think it is, it's what others interpret it to be. At least the way that I can navigate in the world.
Yeah.
Now, if I was just going to be an island and live by myself, hey, what I think about me is that's all that matters. But it's not all that matters. It's what others think about me and how they're perceiving or interpreting, or however they're going about deciding who it is that I am. My goal is to build better, stronger relationships with people and more people, kind of like my dad did. There's a stranger over there, go talk to him, say hi. And I can't be successful at that unless I look at things from other people's point of view. How am I coming across to them? Not how do I think I'm coming across? And there's a difference.
How hard was that for you?
Well, back before I started working on this, all those people were just wrong. Like, you don't get it. You don't get it.
You just don't understand.
Right. I just need to push a little bit more and teach you some more so that you can get it. That was kind of that was the old style. Don't you know how much I care? Don't you know how nice a guy I am? With this angered, furrowed face and whatever, and pounding on the fist to make sure that they understood it.
Right.
So how hard was it? Oh yeah, it took a little bit. It took a little bit of time to recognize that what you see is true. Not just what I'm saying is true, but it's what you see is true. Wow. Right. It's the truth for you. Like perception is your reality. That's an old statement, but it's true.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. That's right. So anyway.
So Scott, what did you get your doctorate in?
It was in leadership studies.
Leadership study. You know, and I think what a great purposeful and useful doctorate for you, because you are a leader. You've been a leader. You've always wanted to lead and lead better. And I think that one of the greatest things that I've seen and witnessed has been the evolution of who Scott DeLong is. And it's been an honor. I mean, it's really been a privilege to just watch the man that you are today. And I know you started way before I knew you, but just seeing in the last 8 years or so, amazing. It's just amazing. I mean,
so what I got
from that
statement was that in the 3 years before you knew me during my transfer, I was much worse, right? I'd already been growing up at the time that I had met you, which is true, because I would have never asked anybody for help to learn how to smile or learn how to do something I didn't do very well before. Right. I would just go do it. I'd read a book and I'd just start doing it. Yeah. Anyway, but I appreciate the comment.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just, I've witnessed it. I've just really been impressed.
So you said I've always been a leader, right? So I've got a new book coming out in January.
Great.
And the title is, I Thought I Was a Leader.
I love that.
And back then I did. I did. You know, the success that I can drive makes me the leader. Well, not one that people wanted to be around if I wasn't doing that thing at that time, right? As the tennis story illustrated. So can lead now with a different purpose, a different process, thoughts behind it. What is it that people really want? People talk about living the golden rule all the time, you know, treat others the way you want to be treated. And then there's this platinum rule, which is a step above that, which is treat people the way they want to be treated. And I'm trying to learn how to do that.
Whew. What would the world look like then?
Yeah. Few less wars, maybe.
Yeah. Amen to that one.
Yep.
So you've got this new book coming out.
Yep.
You also have another book.
Well, I've got the other things that I've written have all been like mini ebooks. I call them ebooks. But this is the first publishable, like full length. Yeah. Like it's a real 280 pages of stuff. Wow. Right. A lot of learning in there, a few stories that kind of cement the learning. You know, and I spend 3 chapters on what I put it into blocks: theory, practice, and principles. So the theory talks about leadership, and it talks about in different types of leadership, and then it talks about communication, which is a big deal to me, and then talks about power and abuse of power and the lack of a better way of using it. So that's the theory portion. The practice portions talk about building teams, Emotional intelligence is part of that. There's a whole chapter on intelligence. And then, gosh, what's the third one? Oh, trust.
Trust.
Trust is a big deal. So, and that trust is what I wrote my dissertation on. And then the principles are those three words that we talked about earlier: humility, empathy, and vulnerability, and how they play into leadership. As opposed to, those aren't words that people use in the business world. We don't talk about, empathy, or we don't talk about humility, or certainly don't talk about vulnerability in the leadership world. But I think that if you lead with those, the rest of it, those are the principles, right? Those are my guiding principles. And then dependability, always have to be dependable too. But those are the three that are new here. And I talk a lot about that. And then partly some of my customers and partly some of my journey on learning these things as well. But it's made my life better. So it's made my life better.
And it sounds like it's made you better.
I think so. I see it. I'm hoping that the world sees it the same way.
I see it.
And I do ask. I ask people because I want their critique.
Yeah.
I want their assistance. Critique equals assistance, right? And you can't just do this world on your own.
So if you had to pick one of those three, which one would you say has got to be immediate, or the sooner, the most effective?
So most effective, I'm going to go with empathy. Most important, and this was for me in particular, was vulnerability. In fact, there's a line that I use in the book that says something like, vulnerability is the most attractive quality I can have. Right? My looks are gone. That's years ago that I'm talking about that kind of attractive. But I'm talking about attracting people to me. Being vulnerable will attract people, and the right type of people, to me, and being willing to be vulnerable.
When we hear vulnerability, I mean, I'm sure you've heard Brene Brown talk about vulnerability, and a lot of people quote Brene Brown. One of the things I love about her was when after she talked about vulnerability, I mean, people would be like, well, this is what vulnerability is. And she came back and said, no, you don't share the same level of vulnerability with every person. You share the level of vulnerability that they qualify for.
Yeah.
How do you discern that for you?
Trust. The qualification is trust, the level of trust that you can have. So the definition of vulnerability is taking a risk to trust the actions of others. It's really what vulnerability ends up being, right? And so the level of trust that folks have earned. Now, I'm one that gives trust away soon. And there's different propensities to trust. Sure. Some people, you have to really work hard to earn it. I happen to give mine away early. And I look for who can maintain that trust. And when they don't, right? I don't give up on people the first time. I also believe in second chances too. But I will call them out on it. I mean, and say, help me understand, right? Why did you, whatever it is that happened? Because people have a reason for what they do. They all have a reason for what they do. So I want to find out. And generally what I find was that with the decent people, and most people are, right? 95% of the population, this stuff works with. 5% it doesn't. The antisocial personality disorders, narcissism, sociopaths, whatever. I'm not going to fix that. But for 95% of the population, if I did something and you did something to break my trust, if I told you something and you broke my trust, I'd come and ask you about it. Help me understand. Where did that come from? Why would you have talked like that? Why would you have said that? Why would you have done that? And come to find out, the other person, you will take that and internalize it and say, I shouldn't have done that. Right. And then we can start building it back again. As opposed to, I know some people that say, hey, break my trust once and you're gone. Well, I'm a second chance guy. I really believe in second, whether it's people coming back from addiction issues or jail or whatever. I believe people need a second chance.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that they learn from their mistakes, like I've learned from mine.
I love the second chance part. Can
Yeah.
we explore that, because we both had some experiences in that?
Sure.
My son, one of my sons has had an addiction problem. You know that, and an amazing human being, loves people, just so much depth to his caring for other people that he hurts to the point where maybe he self-medicates, or from time to time has done that in the past. Your son has had an issue with that as well.
Yeah.
And I remember us sitting in the car out in front of my house talking about it, where we became acquainted with each other's stuff that was going on. That second chances can be really tough when it's so close to home.
Yeah.
We want to give the chance, and then we have to put up those boundaries, and boundaries are really good for us, and we need to have those boundaries. How did you deal with that, to the level that you had to deal with that?
Well, the first thing that I recognized, so before I was just going to try to fix my boy, right? Just do this, follow this path, you'll be fine. Yeah. But you got to do it. It's up to you. That kind of approach. I'll help you, but the work's got to be on you. And it wasn't working. It wasn't working. So the first thing that really helped me was to recognize and have gratitude for his struggle. His struggle was actually part of my growth. Wow. Watching him struggle was part of my growth. It got me involved in Al-Anon and Nar-Anon meetings. And at first I would just go there to hold my wife's hand because she really needed it, right? I'm fine. She needs it. Mm-hmm. And then as I became more open and listened, these people were talking to me. Like the conversations were to me if I would open up and listen to them. Wow. Yes, my wife needed to be there, and yes, she needed her husband to hold her hand too. But however, I can learn more from these things and how these people are going about it. Mm-hmm. And while I was sad for his struggles, I was also grateful, because without them, I would have never been there. I would have never gotten to that place where I could learn something from others who are struggling as well. So for that, when I started seeing gratitude, now I still had to have boundaries and protect myself and my family.
Sure.
My adult son could not come live at home if he was using. That was a boundary. It was a boundary. We had to have it. If you're using, you have to be somewhere else. Yeah. Even if that's sleeping, under cardboard by the gutter.
Right.
You'll figure it out, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we had some boundaries. But when he really wanted to have his second chance, and he was really open to the boundaries and the processes and all that we had to set in place for ourselves, then it was easy to welcome him back, because I love this kid.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
It was easy. Now, if you break the rules, I have to be firm. I have to have my boundaries. It's for the protection of self and the rest of the family.
Right.
And they were real. The boundaries were real. It wasn't going to be moving around. They were boundaries.
Yeah.
So
it
wasn't that hard.
Right.
It wasn't that hard.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, no matter, when you get into addiction issues, no matter what you do,
that's right,
you are not the cure. You are not the cure.
Nope.
You can be the too soft or too hard side and make mistakes in both of those areas.
Yeah. You
could be the just right place, and you're still not the cure.
Right. That's right.
They have to want to be able to do that, and their struggles are real. Your son, my son, passed. Right? He got clean for a year and a half. I'm sorry, got clean for about 4 years, because 2.5 years of those he was in prison, and then he came home and he was great. And then something clicked again, and 3 weeks later he'd passed. But during that 18 months that he was with us, it was great. His mom got to see her little baby again.
Man, Scott, you have got so much depth that the world is receiving the benefit from. And I just want to congratulate you and celebrate you for being willing to pay the price that you've paid over these years and that you're continuing to pay so that you can be the man, the husband, the father, the leader that you are today. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate that.
Absolutely.
I'm sorry, it's work. It is work to take a look in the mirror and say what's wrong with you. And it's not even that, because so I've got a really strong self-esteem, so I can talk like that to myself, but I wouldn't talk like that to someone else. How I would talk to them and say, what can we do better? As opposed to I can tell myself what's wrong with me, right? You need to fix this. But when I'm coaching folks, it is, okay, how'd that work for you? Great. What will we do better next time? It is more the approach, because not everyone had those hard-nosed coaches coaching them when they were young and can handle that. I still thrive on it. If you told me that I was a jerk, I would go figure out a way to fix that because it works for me.
Yeah.
But there's no way I would ever tell a coaching client, hey, you're a jerk, fix that. Right? Most people can't handle that.
Right. I can't. No, that's true.
It would just crush them and make them go even further. So
what's the next level for Scott DeLong? Because you're leading retreats, you're leading adventures, you have courses, you have a new book coming out. What's the next level for Scott DeLong?
So what I found, from right before the pandemic, just right before, and then the pandemic hit, I've been working in this office at home. I'm bored to death with that. I want people. I want to go back and get an office full of people and interact on a day. I want to hang out with my tribe. So what's next for me is to build the business so that it's not just me, and that others can be doing the retreats and the coaching and the coursework and the teaching and all those kind of things. So that's, I think, what's next is I started this business because this was my retirement plan. Like, I'm never going to retire. And the retreats are just so much fun. Like, so let me explain what a retreat looks like.
Yeah, let's talk about that, because the pictures and the videos that you send back are awesome. I want to hear the real deal.
So here we are. So I get to go on these strategic planning retreats with usually about 8 really smart people. And it's almost always in a really cool place, like vacation, right? And I get to do some work, like, because it makes me feel good about doing work. I get into a room, I ask a few questions, I get out of their way, and I get to learn everything they know about the topic we're talking about. Then at the end of that, they always say, thank you, that was great. I didn't do anything. You did all right. But they thank me for that. And then the next coolest part is then they send me a check. It's like, what kind of job is that? Get to go to a cool place, hang out with really smart people, learn everything they know. They say thank you, and then they pay me for it.
Amen.
Like, what's wrong with that business?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what a retreat looks like.
Yeah.
So that's what I thought was going to do for my retirement. If I just did, 12, 15 of these a year, I'm always on vacation, I'm always getting paid, I'm always learning, thought that would be a great way to build a business. The problem is that it does get pretty lonely sitting here in this office by myself. So as I was finishing up the book, I had a small team. There was only 5 of us. So I had my editor, who's getting credit for co-writing the book. Then I had another editor who, these 2 ladies had worked together in the past, and they'd both been clients of mine actually before, social media person, and then my marketing person. And we're on a Zoom call, and we're just having from my point of view, a blast. They're just talking about this and that, and I'm soaking all this in. And I realized that that's what I'm missing right now is the team, is the interaction with these people on a daily basis. Yeah. Writing a book is a very lonely process. Very. Head down, spending here, editing, coming back. But when I got these folks together on this Zoom call, it was like, I was high. It was honestly, it was it was great. So that's what's next for me, is to create that again. I don't necessarily want to do it virtually, but if that's the way the world's going, then maybe we can. But it's just so much better in person.
Well, I agree with that. There's so much more benefit to being able to do it in person, and yet at the same time, I think we've seen a lot of great accomplishments in the business world from people being able to do virtual. Sure. I know for me, I have a bigger reach because I'm not confined to a specific area or my house like I was doing in Newport. So there's some benefit to that, but it comes at a price. That it comes at a deeper level of intimacy, maybe sometimes, but it also comes at a price because you can feel very disconnected if we're not intentional about the conversations we have via virtual. Yeah, absolutely. I found depth in great relationships and great conversations that we've had virtually that maybe at times were sacrificed even in the real time world.
Yeah, maybe people guards are up or down depending on where they're at. But I tell people this all the time. I mean, we'll do the Zoom, and I actually had to learn how to do it. Mm-hmm. Right, we're trying to facilitate a group, and people are polite on Zoom. Because of the multiplexing of the voice, and they wait, and then there's a lot more dead air than there would be in a room. You'd be talking over each other in a room. Yep. Just a little bit, setting a word here, a sentence there. Yeah. So I had to learn how to keep that flow and energy go. Mm. And I don't like when I'm teaching in a university, I don't like calling on people. I want them to bring it up. And in person, I can get that to happen. On Zoom, it's much more difficult to do. So I had to learn how to call, had to learn to see who had something to say, and then to ask them if they're willing to say something about it. So I had to get much better at reading facial cues. I've always been pretty big on the body language and watching and seeing all that, but the facial cues, and I'm trying to scan 8 different pictures around, right? And looking for some raised eyebrow or some smile or something that shows emotion about what was just said. Yeah. And then invite that person to speak. Huge. Yeah. Huge. But I do say this about the Zoom calls. In the Zoom, because I've paid attention to this, I can read the room somewhat, right? I can watch for the cues and all of that. But when we're face to face, so I'm looking at your eyes mostly, right? But when we're face to face, I can read your soul. It's just a little deeper. Interesting, yeah. When you talk about the intimacy, that's the difference. Reading a screen versus reading a soul. Yeah. Wow. Great perspective. So we're going to open it up. Mike Yoder. Hey, brother, you have a comment or a thought or question?
Can you guys hear me?
We can hear you. Can't see you, but we can hear you. You got to turn the camera on. Well, we could hear you. Now you're muted.
Okay, now can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you. Can't see you.
Let's see if I can fix that. Can you see me now?
Coming from you, that's a great statement. He works at Verizon, so.
There we go. All right. So, Scott, it's been a great morning. Great listening to you. Thank you for bringing my Monday in with a really good message.
Thanks, Mike.
Yeah, you talk about your kids, and you talk about the things that I was really focusing on listening and hearing from you was, number one, the way your father related to you and what you took away from that, and the way you're relating to your kids and what you're trying to translate to them. And one of the big points I latched on in for myself was you were talking about success and what success means to you, and how you took from your dad what success meant, but you didn't get it right. You're like, my dad didn't really want that from me. He wanted me to just raise good kids. He just wanted to raise a good human. Now, how are you then in turn translating that to your kids so they don't misinterpret what you want from them and then start chasing just the money gods at all the cost? And we all know where that can go. What are your thoughts on that?
So the first thing that I did with all my kids, and there's 6 of them, 5 surviving, but 6 of them, is one of the things that I would always tell them, and not everyone believed it, is that don't chase money. Don't chase the money. Chase the passion, chase the job. And here's what happens. So but Dad, they're going to pay me $1 more an hour. Or they're this, right? And I said, well, okay, but here's how I like to look at it: is that find something that you love doing. If you love it, you'll get good at it. When you're good at it, they'll pay you. Mm-hmm. So not chasing the money, but chasing the passion, and then the money will follow. So that's one thing that I've done with them. The other thing that I did with them is, and again, not till they became adults, unfortunately, I wish I would have done that I did not have to be their measuring stick. They did not have to have as big a house as me, as much money as me, be as whatever called successful. You get to live the life you want to live. Even with my son that was an addict, the conversations that I would have with him is that if this is a lifestyle that's making you happy, I really want you to continue doing whatever it is that you're doing, being happy. Mm. If this is a lifestyle that's not making you happy, maybe we should take a look at that. Mm. Right? And not telling them how to fix it, but asking good questions for them to come up with the ideas and thought process themselves. Mm. I've really tried to avoid in this 13-year journey that I've been on to take the word should out of my language. Unless I'm talking about myself, here's what I should do. Hmm. I don't think, even with more experience, more years, more whatever, that I have not only the right, but that I actually am right when I tell you what you should be doing. Hmm. I don't have your experience. I don't have your background. I don't have your consequences for whatever action. It's much better for me if you were talking with me about a problem, I would continue to ask you questions about your situation. I might share from some of my own experiences, but I would never tell you what to do. You're a grown man. You'll figure it out. But I can help by asking better. I mean, Bob used to say this all the time. Hey, to get better answers, ask better questions. So I've been working on asking better questions. Because these are grown human beings that I'm talking about. They'll know what to do. And if they don't, they'll come back and talk some more until they get the right answer for them. But it's not me telling them what they should do.
Powerful.
So that's my answer to the question. I don't know if it's right. But kids are doing okay.
That's right on. Thanks.
Love it. All right. Flo, you're up.
Wow, Scott, thank you for sharing today.
Thank you, Flo.
I had kind of took quite a few notes. Since Mike asked a great kid question, I had a kid question on the side as well. But your number one learning, you said, was wrapped around self-reflection. Yeah. What does your self-reflection look like?
So there's a couple questions that I asked. One that I stole from Troy, actually, Troy Hoffman, and one of the things that he looks at. So we have an experience, and then we lay our story on top of that experience. So the question that I learned from Troy was, is it true? Good, great question. Then the next one that I'm always asking myself, and my self-reflection is, what's my part in this? Even if, Bob and I are having an argument and I think he's 100% wrong and just being a jerk and whatever, what's my part in this? There's always something. There's always something I could have done differently, better, to elicit a different response from people. I don't always do it right, but that's what my self-reflection looks like, is when something didn't go the way I was hoping it would, come back and say, what's my part in this? It's really easy to point fingers at the other people. It's really easy to do that because, people make mistakes and they're not as smart as you and they're whatever stories we're putting on that. But it's, what's my part in this? And I'll sit and think about that, right? I meditate a lot. My wife calls it napping, but it's really meditation. The first 20 minutes is meditation, and then maybe another 20 minutes I might fall asleep. But I keep arguing with her about that. I said, I'm not taking a nap, I'm meditating. Anyway,
That's
so I do a lot
great.
of meditation as well, but I asked that question, what's my part in this?
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. It was great.
Love it.
And I'm glad Bob broadcasted this so everybody
Yeah.
could listen to this message.
Thank you.
So, guys, follow Scott on all the social media. How do they get in touch with you? How do you like people to engage with you, Scott?
Well, the easiest way is just shoot me an email. Now, I'm not a big fan of email, but in the case where you just trying to make a contact with somebody, so it's just scott@lead2goals.com, LEAD, the number 2 goals, GOALS.com, and my favorite way to engage is on the phone. Just pick up the phone. I tell people all the time. So I'm a communication expert, right? And I have this thing that's called the communication hierarchy, and it talks about the best way to communicate face-to-face, video, phone call. Below that is email. It's below phone calls, right? But yeah, that's our go-to and what we do all the time. And below that's text messaging, and below that is assuming. So that's the worst form of communication. So I'm going to say, how do I like to get in contact? Let's pick up the phone. However, starting with an email with folks that I don't know is the easiest way. So I see that you put that up there. Or you can go to my website at lead2goals.com. We put a ton of free information out.
Yeah, some great content there.
Yeah, thanks. I'm part of this growing old thing is wanting to learn how to share. And not just charge for everything that we do, but we put out a lot of free content that people are welcome to.
Yeah, it's awesome. Well, Scott, I just want to tell you again, one, thank you for the man that you are today.
Thanks, Bob.
For being willing to pay the price that you've paid to get there. Also, I just want to thank you for your friendship, and I just absolutely love you and your family, and just want to continue to grow that relationship. So thank you.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate it.
Likewise, brother. Guys, get out there, make it a great week, and enjoy your next level.